Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now. Hello, world. I'm Chris Pirillo, live in Toronto, Canada, at Buffer Festival. I am going to do my best to live stream my iPad Air review now that I've had the iPad for how long? I guess a week or so, and used it on the flight out here from Seattle. I'm right now in the middle of doing a talk about tech on YouTube is the name of the session. And so I'm broadcasting live onto YouTube, theoretically. And because I don't know, there's a slight delay on my end, but I'm sharing my screen with the audience behind me so they get to see what I see. It's this whole Inception thing that's going on here, and I don't know if you'd really understand or if it's going to make much sense, but I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on comments as I roll through this particular review of the iPad Air, as well as potentially even take questions from the live studio audience, which never happens because I never leave the house, right? Unless I'm traveling, and then I do leave the house. I just want to check one thing before going because, the worst thing that could ever happen during a tech video broadcast live thing is that things go wrong. So it seems that I am streaming okay live onto YouTube. So now, without further ado, you should have all received the push notification from the free Locker Gnome app. Yep, right there, streaming live. So hopefully you guys had that come up on your iOS or Android device. The iPad Air. Now, I've had every iPad, purchased every one of them over the years, and I've had some amount of perspective in terms of iOS hardware, certainly, as well as iPads. And this one, it was a pretty dramatic leap. That was part of my initial impressions, really. The iPad Air was a dramatic leap moving from, let's say, the iPad third generation, fourth generation. It's not, you're going to say this for every new iPad or every new device in a series. It's the best iPad to date, certainly. But I would say in terms of dramatic changes and overall quality, I've been I haven't been this impressed with a new iPad, not to be confused with the new iPad. I haven't been impressed with an iPad like this since the first iPad. Honestly, everything has been incremental in terms of changes, but the reason why the iPad Air struck me as a really dramatic change is it's extremely lightweight, and in terms of feel in the hand, I have described it, and I think this is appropriate, as closer to something like an iPad mini that's been enlarged compared to a classic iPad that you may have held onto at any point in the past. Now, at this point in time that I'm doing this live stream, they have not yet released the iPad mini, right? It hasn't been released yet, right? Okay, just want to I had to have my audience fact check me because I don't want to, that would have been embarrassing now, wouldn't it? So if you liked the iPad mini but wanted a larger screen, that is really about the only advantage that you're going to have with the iPad Air over, say, there's the reflection, there's what I see in the screen, and then there's the big screen. Look at that. Yeah, you try doing that with your phone. Well, you could, I guess. You'd have to get a little closer. So, to me, this, the feel, the curved edges, it felt nicer to hold on to. You couldn't exactly palm it like you might a pocket tablet, much like you kind of can with the iPad mini. It's going to make for a very difficult decision for anybody who wants to buy a newer series iPad because you've got the iPad Air and the iPad mini, and the differences between the two largely boil down to weight and screen size, because otherwise, spec-wise, they're pretty much the same across the board. In terms of hardware design and options, I mean, there's really nothing different here than has been seen on earlier iPads. You got the speakers there on the bottom, of course, the Lightning port. You got a microphone there, your camera there, camera here, your home button. Nothing's really changed dramatically there. In terms of raw speed and performance, and this is where the lines kind of get fuzzy for me. If you've seen me talk about or heard me talk about iOS 7 at any point in the past, I'm not a huge fan of iOS 7. I don't think it's fully ready yet. It needs a bit more time to bake, and I think if there's an Achilles heel of the iPad Air, it's specifically in the lack of optimization when it comes to this Very, 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 very fast system. In fact, it's the same A7 processor that would be found in the iPhone 5S. It's just they've increased the clock speed just a tiny bit, largely probably to accommodate the extra power it might need with a substantially larger screen resolution. But I found that in using it, general use, much like I've said with iOS 7 on every device I've used it on, there is still some amount of stutter that does happen, especially with animations. That bothers me as someone who prefers smoothness. It's still a very generally smooth experience, certainly when you're scrolling on a web page, going up and down, but even the animation, I don't know if the camera was able to detect it there. Turn off airplane mode. Oh, I'm in airplane mode. I don't need to be on the network. Sorry, I was reading the dialogue there. It just wasn't a smooth animation as it opened up. I saw a lot of dropped frames, and that to me doesn't speak to the quality of the hardware so much as it does the lack of polish in the software. And if you can't perceive that as a shortcoming, hey, congratulations. Good for you. If you don't see frame rates as clearly as I might, if you don't perceive that as an issue, then it's a non-issue for you. It's just that I think that iOS 7 needs more time to bake. But generally speaking, I would say that this is probably just as responsive of an iPad as any other iPad might have been in the past. As I try to yeah. Don't you love it when? And I think it's easier to do when you're looking at an iPad straight on. See, I there we go. Okay, I was just trying to there. I was watching Doctor Who on the plane, trying everything, and the screen is beautiful. It's luscious, no doubt about that. But in terms of responsiveness, it is iOS, and the screen is absolutely, the hardware is responsive, but it still needs I think a few more revisions before I would call iOS 7 a world-class experience. In terms of color representation and text clarity, which are probably most important for a tablet, what I was trying to do here is adjust the brightness so you can kind of see the icons there. I love watching videos on large screens. Always have, likely always will. Doctor Who played very well on the plane on the way over. Very vibrant colors. In fact, as I was watching the episodes, I had been watching the episodes on an Xbox 360 streaming in through Netflix. I was playing them locally on this screen, and it seemed, and maybe it was because I was sitting closer to the screen, the episodes seemed to be much more rich in color, and it was much more, it's kind of like the difference between watching an SD video and an HD video. When you're watching a video on a really nice screen, the colors pop. It's just much more engaging. The screen kind of melts away, and that's really what I look forward to, especially when I'm using a tablet. Is that you don't think about what you're using; you're just immersed in whatever it is that you're doing at the time. Whether you're playing, what is it called now? Star Wars Tiny Death Star, which I have not yet started. I don't know if I will. But the text clarity just as good as it has been on earlier Retina displays. So if you've never seen a Retina display, some people can't even tell the difference between non-Retina and Retina, which is a marketing term for a very high PPI, pixels per inch, creating sharper images and also sharper text, which is important for legibility. And yes, there's absolutely a dramatic difference between high density displays and lower density displays. In terms of battery life, well, I'm at 80% now. And granted, it is in airplane mode, so I haven't been using the internet a lot. But I was able to watch a couple of movies and Doctor Who episodes. This is not a plug, by the way, for Doctor Who, unless you want it to be. You can make it Doctor Who. Any other Whovians?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Glad I'm not alone. You all will become Whovians by the end of this video, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. That was a part of the process when you guys signed up. It's the battery on the iPad has always been great. And I think this is just a testament to Apple's engineering. They were able to get virtually the same amount of battery life in a smaller case or a smaller chassis, the form factor, if you will, of the iPad Air. The battery is great as far as iPads are concerned. And the fact that it's smaller and more lightweight, I don't know how Apple pulled it off, but I can't wait to see what they do with it next. Battery can get you through a day. It's an all-day sucker. It's a great conference computer where you can take it out and about with you. If you want to do word processing, spreadsheet, presentation stuff, you have an external keyboard, Bluetooth keyboard, connect it that way, and you can do some heavier typing. But that's really what turns the iPad into more of a replacement for traditional computing models, is specifically the battery life, not needing to be tethered. Granted, I'm streaming on an actual computer, not a tablet at this point in time. And I've been using my phone heavily, and I'm at 25% right now. But I think half of that's spent searching for a signal. We're in the basement of the CN tower, right? Yep. This is about as low as you can get in Canada. No, I mean, not like in terms of, it's a great experience, not that kind of low, but I mean in terms of, and I suppose you can get high in Canada too. Is that sorry? That I'm talking about the tower, the height. That's what I meant right there. Cameras, fantastic in terms of tablet cameras. I was able to FaceTime with Diana last night, which worked out exceedingly well, and she appreciated that. You can't expect much from a front-facing camera. That would be like your FaceTime camera. And it works, like for video conferencing. It's Inception. I told you. See, in there, I've got a backup. So I'm sorry, your name?
Roman.
Roman? Oh, hey, what's going on? Another member from our community. I asked him to do backup just in case the live stream decided to crap out. So the cameras, we got cameras all over the place. And go figure, a room full of geeks. We have cameras. I've seen in more and more when I was at BrickCon, more people carrying around iPads and taking pictures with the iPads, the front-facing camera, or this camera, the outward-facing camera. No, this is front. This is back. Yeah, this is back. So wait, I got to find the camera. Okay, this is back there. I got to point at the right thing. They're taking more pictures with this camera. It's not insanely awesome. It's not going to be as good as the flagship iPhone or maybe a flagship device from another company, manufacturer, platform, whatever. But it works. It's functional. Doesn't suck, but it's not amazing. I wouldn't necessarily use the iPad as my primary camera, if only because of bulk. In terms of hardware and software parity, that would be like the marriage of hardware and software. Apple's always done a pretty good job with that. Even though I'm not a big fan of iOS 7, I think as they continue to refine it, it will be good. It's the fact that Apple knows this hardware and knows the software intimately that they can provide that type of experience. But honestly, I've seen other manufacturers come really close or inching incredibly close on Apple's territory in terms of owning the hardware and software experience for a good reason. It creates a general overall good experience. So the parity between hardware and software is probably about as good as it could get today. And I would hope that would continue to improve over time. In terms of app selection, shouldn't have to dive into this. I mean, it's the iPad. The nice thing is that the hundreds of thousands of apps optimized specifically for this screen, the resolution, size, a lot of the apps don't just look like blown up iPhone apps, and they work exceedingly well. Certainly if the software can take advantage of the hardware, the underlying, the speed, they work even better. I mean, certainly apps launch quicker, but it's the fact that all those apps are optimized for this screen. It really hasn't changed all that much since the inception of the iPad, other than moving from non-Retina to Retina. So you can expect your apps are going to continue to get better, but they're already starting at a pretty good level. In terms of accessories ecosystem, it is the iPad. So assume that anything Apple releases is going to have a rich ecosystem around it. The iPad Air is no different. I decided to buy the cover, the smart cover, right? They go by so many names. It is more like the iPad mini cover than my older cover, and it works well. I mean, the magnet is strong enough to watch it drop and shatter, which would be awesome, but it's not going to happen. I don't want that to happen. It works. It works very well. I would say, as a purist, I don't want to add too much bulk to my particular devices. And I think Apple's done a fair enough job with their newer cover. Although you can see there's a bit of a gap. I don't know how I can get that into focus. Let's see if I can. There's a bit of a gap up front. Here's a little trick for you. I'm trying to put my hand up there so you can see it. There's a bit of a gap, so it doesn't cover it completely. But completely enough. But it doesn't seem to fit as well as the older smart covers did, if that's what they're calling it. The older covers from Apple. But there are so many device manufacturers, accessories manufacturers who are releasing other accessories for the iPad that I'm sure you can find the one that you like the most that'll fit your needs. In terms of cost per value, at $500. Despite there being other tablets in the field from with other platforms and what have you. I honestly believe if you need a larger screen tablet, the iPad, even at $500, is difficult to beat. It's quality in terms of hardware. You've got a rich software apps ecosystem. That's, again, it contributes to your general experience, or should contribute to your general experience. It's not just about cost or raw cost. It's about that general value. Now, even though I have not, this is where I got to throw in a caveat. I have not yet seen whatever the iPad mini, the new one, the Retina display iPad mini. However, not having used it, but knowing Apple and knowing the iPad mini, and now with Retina being the same spec-wise other than size as the Air, I think that if you were to choose between the two, I think more people are going to go with the Air. More people are going to go with the iPad mini, if only because it's $100 less and it's just as powerful. The only difference, as I think I said this at the beginning too, the only difference is going to be in screen size. That's the advantage of the Air, or spending $100 extra for the extra screen resolution. So it's going to be very interesting to get a hold of the Air, but I expect my Air experiences to be just the same as the iPad. Sorry, do I keep saying Air when I mean mini?
Yep.
All right. So I meant mini. I expect my mini experience, mini, not Manny experience, mini, M-I-N-I experience. I'm sorry, M-I-N-I. I don't know which way I'm broadcasting. Okay, however I'm writing, right or left, M-I-N-I experiences to be the same as the Air, which have been good. The iPad experience has generally been good over time. Is it something that you're willing to spend $500 on? Maybe not. Is it something you're willing to spend $400 on? Well, I think $400 is a pretty good deal it will be a pretty good deal for the iPad mini. So, I don't see myself, not wanting to buy the next new iPad. Of course, I sell my older iPads to be able to afford the newer ones. This is the 128 gig model, if only because I, push a lot of data around. Watch videos, record videos on my iPad. I do stop motion stuff when I'm doing the brick builds. It was very difficult for me. See, the smart cover is not, there's a gap there. It's not perfect, but it works, or at least works well enough. There are very few things that I did not like. I would struggle to find things that I did not like, or that I would point out as a flaw. You could say, well, wouldn't you want it to be more affordable? Sure, but everybody would, wouldn't you want to buy this for $300? Well, yeah, who wouldn't? I mean, that's not really a legitimate complaint. It was very difficult to find a complaint about the iPad Air other than iOS 7, but that's iOS 7 and not really having anything to do specifically with the hardware and the general experience with the iPad today. Who is the iPad Air for? I would say, if you've owned an older iPad, and some people are still using iPad 2s, some people even the first generation iPad, which is 4 years ago or so. This is probably for you. Same screen size. If you're looking just to jump into your first tablet experience and you want a large screen, or about as large as you could probably carry around with you, I would say the iPad Air is going to be very, very difficult to top. Who is this not for? Well, someone who doesn't want to spend a lot of money in terms of other tablets that are out there. The caveat to that is you're going to have different experiences with software and certainly with hardware, which isn't to say that's bad. It's just something that I have to throw in there because your choice is going to be different from everybody else's choices. But it's also not going to be for someone who has it's lightweight, but it's not as portable as the iPad mini. And that's one thing that came to me when my wife she got her first iPad mini, the non-Retina. She was so happy because she could stick it in her purse. I don't know if this is purseable as a smaller tablet. I mean, depends on the size of your purse. Diana keeps pushing for a bigger purse, and so it's not as purseable. So that's something if you want to carry something around in a purse, probably not going to be for you, or European handbag, whatever you use to carry around. I tote around, I got a little wheelie thing, so it doesn't really matter the size of my screen. All right, so that's pretty much what I had to say. It's generally been a good experience. I haven't had too many problems with it. The crowd behind him are sleeping, actually. You guys asleep? Okay, they're not asleep. It just looks like they're asleep. Any questions from this audience? I was expecting at least one "you suck," but that's okay. I'll be fine without it. Yes?
Not to incite a flame war or anything, but what would competition have to do to not necessarily surpass it, but potentially be on an equal level?
On par.
On par.
Actually, it's a fantastic question, and if you don't mind, I'm going to try to address both audiences here. I'm in the middle. I'm the ombudsman here. Okay, YouTube meet Toronto. Toronto meet YouTube. And if you're in Toronto, dude, what are you not doing here? Like really? Like you guys?
Trippy.
Yeah, Charles Trippy. There we go. I'm against Charles Trippy
Yeah.
today. So here's the thing, and I actually spoke to this in the Why I Like Apple video a few weeks ago. I think more manufacturers of hardware are starting to grok the idea of marrying hardware and software and services and experiences. And I think this is going to become even more apparent when I think Samsung is going to drop Android. I have no insider information. Again, not a holy war, but look at what they're doing with the Tizen open source. And they're developing their own services independent of Android, pushing Android further and further into the background as far as Samsung's concerned. And Samsung even has said recently that they're looking to complete the software experience or do a better job with it. And that, to me, is where Apple has been all this time. Even look at when I watched the Surface video, the first one. You heard Ballmer on stage saying, it's about hardware and software working together. I'm like, where have I heard this before? Everyone seems to be following Apple, and I think for good reason. And I think the only people who stand to benefit, or everybody stands to benefit from that, people, consumers, because it doesn't just give you more choice. It's not just about more choice. It's about having more good choices. It's about having viable choices. Like, would you like slow DSL or dial-up? Like, that's choice. They both suck. So the question is, it's not really about the amount of choices or the amount of hardware that gets put out there, or the amount of features. It's about the implementation. It's never about the idea. And the more manufacturers key in on the overarching experience, keeping in mind their own cost, because you got like Amazon out there selling the Kindle Fire pretty much at cost, even though I don't know if those who are technologically minded are really hip to it. I think the Kindle Fire is a good experience for someone who just needs average browsing the web, watching video, digesting ebooks without necessarily using an e-reader with an e-ink display. So it's about addressing not just what they think consumers need, but that the endpoint, that experience. How many times have you purchased hardware? Let's say $100. You purchased this $100 product. It's supposed to be amazing, and it sucked. Like the software was, you figure it was written by baboons. The software was so bad, and you spend $100 on it, and it was a waste. That $100 is overpriced. Now compare that to spending $200 on a product that works exceedingly well. You would say that it's a great value. So it's not necessarily about the dollar amount. It's about that what are you getting from it? It's that general experience, and I think we're seeing more and more. I mean, general operating systems evolving, certainly mobile, desktop, evolving to the point of keeping experience at the forefront. And I would say a few companies are doing better at that than other companies at this stage, but I think it is, for technology especially, marrying hardware and software to that experience. And I've been saying that for years, and they're starting to, I don't think they're listening to me, but I think they're starting to grok that idea that it actually adds to the general experience of someone. All right, see if we have any comments. Charles is trippy, man. Yeah, okay, that's the other session. Go watch his live stream. Why I gotta get trolls? Why? No, I'm kidding. See here, Chris. Be sure to have some poutine with Canadian bacon before you leave. I had poutine last night in Canada. I even vlogged it for like 5 seconds. Let's see here. Did he just say Ballmer on stage? Ballmer. Yes, I did. Blink 503. Are there any anime fans in the audience? I'm not sure why that's relevant, but any anime fans?
Yep.
Oh, more anime fans than Doctor Who. Well, we're surrounded by geeks. I drive like a man possessed, says he's smoking crack. Well, thank you for that, but I am not the mayor of Toronto. Right? Trying to be relevant, Right. I did my research. He invited me to a party last night. Couldn't go, though. I was like, no, I gotta get up early tomorrow morning to be at this YouTube thing. So any other questions here? They're actually streaming in live, which is great. I'm glad everybody could join us here in the middle of a Saturday with a few hundred people tuned in for the cut the rope test. I think we're past the cut the rope test now. The iPad has always done really well at cut the rope. which heralds back to, I guess, my Surface with Windows RT, or now Surface RT review, where it was a lot of dropped frames, which is improved. Microsoft's improved the experience, but I'm not going to do the cut the rope test. Sorry, not drop the rope tests. Or drop the pants? No, we're not going to do that either. I made up that comment. No one actually said it. Don't say it. Now they're going to do it. Don't quote me on Wikipedia either. Every time I say that, like, Chris, drop the pants, Pirillo. And now someone's going to do it, screenshot it, and post it on Twitter. Any other questions from this audience? Because it's easier to pick out from you guys. Yes?
This is an extension on that poutine question. Do you know if you have any good poutine restaurants in Seattle?
I've been to 2. I couldn't tell you what they are, but they're pretty good. Gravy, cheese curds, fries. I'm not really sure what else. Bacon is the only thing that I think I was missing. Although Canadian bacon, come on, it's ham. Yeah. It's ham. Not real. Although, I'm surprised. It's great to have this audience here. I was afraid they were going to ask their question in English and then follow it up with a question in French, because that's what they do around here. It takes everybody twice as long to do anything. It's like, okay, we get it. So is that we're coming close on about a half hour or so. If I've got any other questions, do I think the iPad misses Samsung's tablet pen functions? You could get a capacitive stylus for your iPad or iOS screen if you wanted. But honestly, if I can't use my finger, I don't want to use it anymore. I had to use styluses for years and years and years, and I'm not to say they're the worst things, but in terms of my general use, unless I was doing a lot of writing or note-taking or sketching, I wouldn't say not having a stylus doesn't take away, because I could get a capacitive stylus for the iPad screen. That, to me, is not a selling point. Maybe for somebody else. Any other questions in this audience? I'm coming close to a half hour, so it's a nice round number, even though I'm sure I'm going to stop broadcasting like a few seconds before. Why take iPad over Android tablet? Well, here's the thing. 2 completely different experiences, and I actually think the Nexus 7 is a great value for what it is, too. So I'm not... You can have both. I have both. I like both, but for almost completely different reasons. The new Nexus 7, I think, is a dramatic departure from the first one, and I expect the next Nexus 7 to be just as good. But it's a great value for the price. And in terms of... It just depends on what you need, what you want. If all you do is surf the web... Couple $100, Nexus 7, you're good to go. If you want a richer experience, if you want really a leading world-class tablet, you'd probably be better off either with the Air with a larger screen, or if you want a smaller screen, the new iPad mini. I think it's going to be very difficult to beat, even at the price, because of the quality of hardware and the amount of apps that are optimized specifically for that screen. What's the movie, and why is no one eating popcorn? Asks Ray DVD. The movie is Random Geek in Canada. I don't know and it sucks. Don't watch it. I give it Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know. A couple more questions. We got some good tablet questions. Do you think the new Surface 2 will be able to compete with the iPad? Asks Bilal Majid. No. It's honestly no. It's overpriced. And I hate to say that, but it is absolutely overpriced for what you get. If Microsoft, did it at cost, I think they'd be better engaging the market. But they don't really have a lot of developers on board. It's kind of this vicious circle. Not a lot of developers, not a lot of users. Microsoft's in this interesting gap where they're trying to, they've got the traditional PC model that they're clinging onto for dear life, and this new model where everyone's like, ooh, iPad and nice and tablety, and they want Windows to be everything to everybody, and it just can't be. And I think Microsoft made some major missteps with licensing and certainly with implementation and pricing. I think they're outpricing themselves. And in fact, I don't have any insider information, but I believe the Surface 2 will probably sell. I'm not gonna say half as well as the Surface, the first Surface. Sorry, they're laughing because people are commenting. Oh, you guys can read this. Yes, they can read your comments. This is a very live, interactive show. This is the way I like doing things when I'm speaking in front of an audience. So Surface 2 is nice. It's a little faster than the first Surface. I have no plans on upgrading at this stage, but I think that Microsoft's going to hurt themselves in terms of pricing. So are you guys interacting with the audience on YouTube now? That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, no, now you know. Trust me, you can get sucked in. When you watch comments coming in live, I've seen people get sucked in for hours. I'm not going to twerk.
Oh my God.
See, now, isn't that funny? Like, they read it. I reacted to it. They laughed before you heard what it was. I'm not going to twerk. That's just not so. I think it's illegal in Toronto, unless you're the mayor, in which case I think you need. I think you need to twerk. So I'm going to go ahead and go ahead and close her out. Thank you everybody for participating. Not just this wonderful audience here at the first annual Buffer Festival, but certainly you for tuning in live. And even if you weren't able to tune in live, I appreciate you watching all the way through to the end of this video. What's a word they could use in the comment thread to prove that they watched the video all the way through?
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans. Just make sure you spell it the right way. Like, I don't even know if I could spell it the right way. And you have to write it in English and French. See, that's the true French-Canadian way.
Oui,
That's yes, yes. Right, okay, got that. I wasn't sure if you wanted a bathroom break or really, I mean, been here for a half hour. So thanks again for remembering to comment, like, share the things that we're doing for you. If I missed anything in this particular review, it was not intentionally. Just trying to have a fun experience doing something rather unique at a YouTube event with YouTube and people who love YouTube. So thanks for tuning in. I never get applause at the end. I got to do this more often.